Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here. Happy Monday, a victory Monday of sorts. Josh McCuistion back in Houston HQ, and Oklahoma 24-3 victory over Alabama on Saturday, as I'm sure everybody is aware here watching on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. A couple quick announcements to get through. Obviously, when you play Alabama the way that Oklahoma did, you're going to be honored by the conference. SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, R. Mason Thomas. SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, Fabechi Wewu, which was, I guess, a little bit of a surprise. We'll talk more about Eddie Pierre-Louis getting into the game as well on Saturday. And then SEC Freshman of the Week, no surprise here, Xavier Robinson, a career-high 107 yards on the day, 2 touchdowns. Danny Stutsman named Butkus Award finalist on Monday.
Yeah, awesome. And I think he's got a chance to win it, Eddie. Looking at the statistics, he is right there with the best of those guys. And I was telling you earlier, one of the criteria for the award is just your leadership, your importance to the team, off the field, the way that you've been in the community and all those things. And you think about Danny and his importance to this team these last 4 years, but especially this year coming back, what he's meant to this group, this defense that has been really good all season. I think he very clearly is in it. I think the donating to the walk-ons thing could also play a part in that. So I think he's got a good shot. I know the kid from Georgia's had a really good year. He's a finalist. And then Pooh Williams?
I believe so, yeah.
Or Pooh Paul. Pooh Paul is his name. The transfer from Arkansas to Ole Miss. Yeah. He's been a monster this year for Ole Miss. So we'll see how it plays out. But, obviously – so happy for Danny. That was a big reason he wanted to come back. Last year he got snubbed. I mean, he wasn't even a semifinalist a year ago, which is crazy because he had better stats last season despite missing a couple games with an injury. So, for him to come back and have the type of year that he's having and just kind of be kind of that foundation, that pillar for this program, I think it's awesome to see him rewarded like this.
No doubt about it. We'll find out December 10th,
December 10th is when they'll announce the winner.
I think that's part of the ESPN production that they do for the college football awards show out of usually Atlanta, but we'll need to find out where that's going to be. I think it was in Orlando one year as well. That'd be cool if it was back in his hometown. Good morning, good afternoon, Josh. Let's start here as we get into the 24-3 just absolute beatdown on Saturday evening. What the hell? Where did this come from? What a performance on Saturday night for Brett Venables and company.
Well, I don't want to speak for you guys, but as I look through the predictions, I think I nailed that, right? I think I had 24-3 or something very similar to that. Now, we'll
31-6, but it might have the other way. The other way, like a lot of people thought.
I had the wrong read. Absolutely. Guys, that was the one thing I'll say. That is the kind of game plan that we've talked for weeks on the Gameday Rewind of that's what they had to do if they were going to win. And I know some people are saying, well, this is what they should do going forward. Let's tap the brakes on that. But this team and the way they need to play to win this game, missing their top 6 receivers, having no real downfield passing attack, this is how you're going to have to win games. And to see how – and again, I don't think it's so much about, this game plan was so different. I think Joe John Finley just did a great job leaning into it. They saw early, hey, we're having some success with this. We're going to stick with it. We're not going to try to do too much. I know George and I were talking, I think that was in the third quarter, George, when there was a play on a third down, and I said something like, that's just crazy that there's no pass option there. And it was – you said it's just not worth the risk. And I as I look at it more, you're like, yeah, why even take that chance of doing something that would give Alabama some momentum, because Oklahoma had just both offensively and defensively just stifled any chance Alabama had to get back in that game.
Well, and it's crazy too because they didn't have any options to pass the ball to either. We've known it all year with the 5 wide receivers, but when Brennan Thompson went down, it was like they don't even have any options. And for Oklahoma to go in and run the ball the way they did, and Josh, I wanted to ask you especially about the offensive line. I mean, when you talk about a group that everybody's been extremely critical of, and rightfully so in a lot of ways, with the hodgepodge of guys they've got out there, the amount of young players they've got out there, raggedy old Spencer Brown, I think is
Brent Venables absolutely feeling himself in the post game.
That was great. But Josh, just what did you make of that group and just the the bright spots in the future, because you talk about some young guys that really played well in the game. EPL, Eddie Pierre-Louis got in the game for, I think, one series.
But it might have been one of the biggest series of the game, going right before halftime, being able to bleed the clock and then score the touchdown, obviously, on the 18-yard Xavier Robinson run.
Exactly, and Logan Howland played great. Heath Ozida, I think, had his best game as a Sooner. Josh, what'd you just think of the offensive line and the way that they played?
Well, guys, I think it starts to get into an area where you're thinking about how this impacts what you want to do in the portal. Like, because I think left tackle, left guard, you kind of know next year. Now, okay, you want to tell me Michael Vasusi comes in and sets the world on fire and they're going to start him over Logan Howland. Okay, I don't think that's what's going to happen. But if you tell me that, it tells me Michael Vasusi's been freaking great. Like, he's been unbelievable. Okay, fine. But I think you feel very good about if you're moving forward and Logan Howland is your left tackle, Heath Ozida is your left guard, and Troy Everett's your center, guys. I think Troy Everett's kind of getting overlooked. I thought he played a really good game. Alabama, guys, presented almost no meaningful plays behind the line of scrimmage. Now, some of that is because of the way Oklahoma designed it. All that run, all those shovel passes, it forced the defensive ends to kind of stay home. They couldn't get upfield. So some of that is by design. But at the same time, Oklahoma did a nice job when they were in pass blocking situations. One of the best ones I can think of was, you mentioned Eddie Pierre-Louis coming in on that touchdown drive late in the first half. He misses a block and gets beat inside, and Jackson Arnold's in real trouble. Troy Everett feels it. He gets the bump from Heath Ozida because they're working on a double. He feels Heath Ozida, and he comes over and cleans up Freddie Pierre-Louis, and the play ends up going for, I think, no gain. Jackson Arnold just kind of scrambles out, and it just ends up being a nothing play. But it could have been a real drive killer. That's the plays we've talked about. When the second Oklahoma gets into, out of normal down and distance, that drives over. That could have been that play, and instead Oklahoma's offensive line kind of picked it up. But again, I think from left tackle to center, you feel good about your future. You kind of know what you're looking at for at least next year. And in the case of Howland and Ozida, you could be talking for a couple of years.
It's unbelievable to me, the tone that we're talking about the program, just in general, but especially an offensive line that has obviously been maligned this year. They haven't been good at times. I think the criticism has been well-deserved. But, like you said, Josh, you look at Heath Ozida there, you see Logan Howland next to him. You might be talking about the future of the left side of the offensive line. And I think the most encouraging thing is it does appear, even if it's little baby steps, they're making improvements each week.
And
they're getting more comfortable each week.
I think it's a credit to Bill Bedenbaugh, somebody that we've also been very critical of. And again, we've talked a lot about what's his future hold here at Oklahoma. The offensive coordinator situation. I feel like, Josh, that a performance like that and the improvement that you've seen, and obviously the young guys that they've got in this program that are obviously, because of Bill and the guys that they're bringing in, feels like Bill Bedenbaugh is going to be back next year, barring something crazy, or if, maybe he wants to go somewhere else. I don't know. But I think, Josh, that he's done a phenomenal job with really, piecing together a totally different offensive line. It feels like every single week. And now it's finally starting to come together.
Sure.
Well, and guys, I know one of the common, complaints is always tinkering with the line. I don't think you can say that this year. I'm not saying that the lineup hadn't changed, but it hasn't been because Bill Bedenbaugh's not happy with the way a guy's playing. He's had a mash unit. Because the receiver unit has been so insane, people have kind of overlooked. Like, OU dropped, 270-something yards on the ground against Alabama. Didn't have three of their preseason starters on the field in Hatchett, Taylor, and Sexton. Hackett, Tarquin, and Sexton. So, you look at it and you're just like, good Lord, guys. How are they supposed to do this? So, I think there's so much you can consider here. But, yeah, guys, this is what we talked about. When you talk about Bill Bedenbaugh's strengths, it is developing players. It is making guys better and better, and you watch them grow. And I think people had kind of forgotten that. And some of that is on Bill, because I think there has been a tendency to fall in love with, we didn't get what we wanted in recruiting. We'll just go fix it in the portal. And I think that can become a crutch. And I think that can become very easy to be a kind of eraser. And with guys like Walter Rouse, hey, you fixed your problem. Great. But relying on that to happen over and over again, is hard to do, especially from week one. Guys, look at Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown was a passable football player against Alabama. In week one, you were like, this guy can't ever see the field again. There's no way to be this bad and have that much experience. But he's gotten better even still.
Of all the incredible stats coming out of Saturday evening and what Alabama wasn't able to do, we'll get to that here in a second. Defensively, first play that went for negative yardage on Saturday night for Oklahoma comes at the 3:56 mark of the third quarter. And when you remember how we talked about this offensive line out of the South Carolina game, even the Ole Miss game in the fourth quarter, they were very, very good, and they set the tone offensively for a run game that was obviously very, very good. They run for over 200 yards, 205 yards in the first half, and a lot of that had to do with Xavier Robinson and Jackson Arnold. Let's start with Xavier Robinson. Josh, we covered him in high school, obviously, up at Carl Albert. To say that I thought he was going to be a good running back in college, I thought he was going to be good. I thought he'd be fine eventually. This explosion of what we've seen from him over the course of a little bit in the Missouri game, and then obviously on Saturday night as he goes for a career-high 107, opens the game with this 40-yard carry, the second longest by an OU running back this season. I want to ask you just how much did you think he was going to be able to – did you think he was going to be able to come in and step in and play from day one as he has? And we talked to Danny Stutsman this morning about it, and he fumbled a lot during practice during August is what Danny said, and he'd been over with the scout team, recently gets moved over. Just how surprising has this, I guess, breakout star out of Oklahoma's backfield been?
Yeah, and maybe that's a side note for everybody. Don't give up on Taylor Tatum too quick. Let's give Taylor his time. There's plenty of time for him to be the talented guy that he is. But the man of the hour is absolutely Xavier Robinson. Guys, I thought he could have a role this year. I did. I thought he would be, to use the old silly, adage, like the Thunder guy. Like he was going to come in 3rd and 3, short down situations, and try to pick up first downs for Oklahoma at 235 pounds and just be that kind of guy. I did not foresee that Oklahoma was going to place so much importance on him changing his body up. Because, I mean, Eddie, you remember, we'd see him as a senior, and you're like, good God, he's a defensive end. He's huge. He was 6'1", 250. I mean, and just I'm like, so you knew he had to trim up. You didn't know he'd change his body this much, and especially this fast. And, I know I've heard some of the stories about, him getting up early and working with Schmidt and some of that stuff. That's awesome and not at all surprising. That is, when you go to a place like Carl Albert and, work with those folks, there's only one thing on their mind, and that's the bottom line. If they want to win, they're going to do the things it takes. And I would guess Jerry Schmidt never had to have a motivational conversation with Xavier Robinson. Like, you be in here, you do this, we'll get you where you want to go. And I think that was it. Like, I that's just the way that kid is wired. And what's scary, guys, is he's only going to get better. Like, I'm watching him, like, that touchdown run, that's speed, guys. Like, that's the one thing we're like, all these things that Xavier can do. He can catch the ball. He can do some of this stuff. Good Lord, guys. Like, he was running away from Alabama, guys. Like, that's, and I'm not saying he's going to become a 4-3 guy or anything like that, but there's plenty there in the bag. I just couldn't have been more impressed.
I think, too, Josh, to your point, a lot of us want to be like, well, where was he all season? And I think that's a fair question to ask, because I'm sure that they could have found ways to use him even early in the season. But I think he is certainly somebody that behind the scenes has been developing, whether that's getting his body right in the weight room with Schmitty and all that goes into that, or just, being on the scout team to start the year and getting more reps in practice and so forth. What's he going to look like next year? Like, when he has a full year under his belt with Schmitty, the offseason, all of that, like, he already looks physically great right now. I can't imagine what he's going to look like next year. And the one guy he reminds me of, I said this on the postgame pod, is Kennedy Brooks in the way that he runs. Sure. Now, he's bigger than Kennedy and more physical in a lot of ways, but the way he runs, kind of patient, sees the hole, and he doesn't look like he's going to beat you with speed, and then he does. Like, that to me, that kind of pace that he runs with is Kennedy Brooks-esque.
One of the things that one of his best qualities too, and much like Kennedy Brooks, he always seems to find a way to just fall forward.
Yeah.
And a couple of those 3rd and 2s that Oklahoma had on Saturday ended up being first downs because he was stopped and he just happened to fall forward.
Even some of those, some of those 3-yard runs that he had. It's like he's just so big and physical, and he holds on to the football. That was the one thing we were rewatching the game in the office before we did this, and the amount of hard hits he takes, and he just holds on to the ball. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Sharing that backfield was Jackson Arnold, and he goes for a career high 131 yards on the day, just 9 for 11 for 68 yards. But Josh, when we're talking about Jackson Arnold, I thought the number one thing for him, obviously holding on to the football, he just had a poise about him that it looked like a guy who was like, okay, that's the quarterback at Oklahoma.
Did it feel at all to you like after that Missouri game, which could melt a lot of guys? Like I thought Jackson Arnold showed a lot of just confidence, like belief to bounce back, because a lot of guys, the way that Missouri game ended, it would have ended their season, would have ended their career in Oklahoma. Like they just couldn't come back from it. And I wouldn't even fault them that much. Like that's just a brutal way to lose a football game. But for Jackson to come back and play the way he did with the confidence he did, I think it just says a lot about his mentality. Like just a kid going out there and was like, you know what? I can't get any farther below, where I was 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to go play football, and whatever comes out of this is whatever comes. And guys, the thing for me that stood out, and I think I mentioned it during the game, and as I go back and through the Monday Morning Idiot and I'm watching it, his reads were awesome. I mean, we talked about it all year where you're like, this is what this kid did in high school. Why is he struggling with this? I don't know what switched on. I don't know what it was. But, man, like, not just like, oh, he kept it or gave it at the right time, but like, okay, I need to hold this a beat. I'm going to do this for just a little longer. I'm going to ride this block just a little longer than I have been. And it just worked out so well. And I thought, George, you mentioned it with Xavier Robinson. It's the same thing with both guys. I thought they showed such a better understanding of the blocking schemes and how to best utilize that stuff than we've seen at any point all year. And I thought it was a big part of why they had success. The offensive line blocked better, but at the same time, I thought the running backs and the backfield, I guess, used that offensive line in the way they were attacking the defenders better than we've seen all year.
He was just so physical. It felt like he just kept getting up. There's a few hits he took that I was like, man, is he going to get up from that one? And he just kept getting up and was super. What was it? 25 rushes.
Yep.
And I think some of those were scrambles,
something along those lines.
Like he was very clearly, I don't know about looking to scramble, but he was like 1 read, 2 read. If it's not there, go. And so I think that was super impressive. And then I thought the throw to Brennan Thompson over the middle was a big one. This is it right here. There we go. Kerry teed it up there for us. But, he's getting pressure here, and he lets it rip. And I was telling Eddie, that's kind of been his best throw all year, Josh, is kind of that slant on the RPO.
That, and it's one of those things where, and I said something about like, if it could have been more consistent, I think this would have been a very different year for this offense, because it seems like he either hits it dead on the money or it's a bad one. Like there's no middle ground on it. Like, it's not like, oh, it's a little behind them, they had to catch it on their hip. It's like, because I think that's where they went out on the first drive of the game on a 3-and-out where he just airmailed it. And you're like, what, like that, because that just feels like a timing thing, 1-2, boom, like gone. And you're right, George. When it's right, it's his best throw. It's where he's been most comfortable all year. But then he'll miss one, and you're like, where did that come from? The one to Jacob Jordan after Eli Bowen's interception, that was another really good one. So, the thing that's interesting to me is, and I think you said something like this after the game, George, if you would have told me Jackson Arnold's going to go 9 for 11 and they're going to throw for 68 yards, I'd have been like, they're losing by 30.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a bloodbath. And I don't know if that's because I didn't believe they could play the kind of game they played against Alabama, or just that they wouldn't run that kind of game. But again, I just couldn't be more impressed with how there's no way that was their game plan coming into this game. There's no way they thought, hey, we're just going to bully Alabama like this. But as soon as they realized they could do it, they were like, screw it. We're not going to put the ball in play when it doesn't need to be. We're not going to be foolish. And everybody on that roster bought into it. I thought the receivers did an outstanding job. It would be so easy for those guys to go to sleep, and they didn't do it all night.
Josh, let me ask you real quick. What do you think Jackson's future is going to be like at Oklahoma? Do you think that, because I think everybody's now wondering, is he going to stay? Does he look elsewhere? I think, again, it largely depends on offensive coordinator and if they bring a guy or whatever. But what do you think about the potential of Jackson possibly staying at Oklahoma?
Frankly, I would be shocked if any coordinator came in and didn't want Jackson to stay. Like, he's a talented guy. They're going to, you guys know, these guys all believe, like, I can get it out of him. I can get him to where his talent says he can go. I can do all that stuff. And Georgia, I know you and I both like Arbuckle at Washington State, and the way he uses John Mateer, you got to be watching Jackson Arnold on Saturday night thinking, okay, I can do something with that. Like, this guy can run like this, and I know, Gatorade Player of the Year and all that, or USA Today. I keep saying Gatorade. I can't remember which one it is, but all these high school accolades, and we saw him throw for thousands and thousands of yards in Texas's biggest classification. So we know he can play, and because you go in and fix that guy and get him playing to the level that we all thought he could or maybe still can, then all of a sudden you're on a lot of head coaching boards. Forget offensive coordinator. So I think that's where that gets really interesting. And I thought Jackson got a chance to show the athlete he is. There's people, I think because he doesn't run like Michael Hawkins, people are like, oh, he's not that athletic. No, he's really athletic. He's just not Michael Hawkins.
In closing, just on the offensive side of the ball particularly, we've come in here on Mondays and said, what the hell was that game plan? Kudos to Joe John Finley and that entire offensive staff for putting together something that it seemed like every button that they pushed on Saturday, they got something out of it. Even the play that could have been a touchdown on the double reverse or the reverse pass from Brennan Thompson to Bauer Sharp. What a perfect play call in the moment on third down.
Yeah, just needed a little bit better ball from Brennan, and then obviously Sharp's got to catch that one.
Yeah, you just got to catch it. I mean, it's a tough grab, but you got to catch it.
Yeah, but to your point, great call. I didn't really, there weren't a whole lot of plays, Josh, that I was like, man, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't get that feeling. And guys, kind of like we talked about from the very first snap of the game, as I'm going through it in the idiot, I keep looking down at the game clock, and you're like, dang, there's only 7 minutes left in the second quarter. Like, it was just going by so rapidly because they were eating up clock and just devouring it. And guys, it looked a lot like I know you guys watched that game too, that Alabama-Vanderbilt game where it just like Alabama only got so many possessions and you could see that pressure start to wear on that offense and wear on that offense. The primary difference being is Oklahoma's defense is a lot better than Vanderbilt's, and Jalen Milroe just couldn't ever even get anything rolling when he had the opportunities. I know we want to talk defense, and that was just an absolutely unbelievable performance.
Oklahoma wins the time of possession battle 34-11 to 25-49, and one of the reasons that they were able to do that is because defense was giving them plenty of opportunities to get the football back. Josh, one of the best defensive performances for an Oklahoma football team in a long, long time. I know that you look at the Alabama stats that are coming out of it. It's truly mind-blowing a couple days later even to look at 3 points lowest that the Alabama had scored since 2004. No touchdowns for the first time since 2011. First time that they were held scoreless in the final three quarters of a game. That was the first time since 2000. The 21-point deficit, the largest in a regular season game since 2016. I mean, my God, what are we even talking about here? What a performance for the OU defense on Saturday. And as we talked about on the Eskridge Lexus postgame show, they got it from everybody on Saturday. Yep. It was a full team defensive effort on Saturday evening in Norman.
Yeah, guys, as I was going through, for those who haven't looked at the report card or have just been, on a 48-hour bender after that game, I totally get it. But the report card, I'm pretty sure that's the highest score I've ever given a unit. Oklahoma's defense, they almost averaged basically an A, which is damn hard to do. Because if one guy busts or has a bad play that really costs you, he's going to be a 50 and it's going to mess up the rest of the scorecard. So just so many really good performances. I think Danny Stutsman got my lowest grade of anybody on the defense. And that's like Danny was like 85 or 86, which is a really good score any week of the year. But they were just so good and so consistent. And I thought you got performances from a lot of guys that maybe don't get credit. I thought DJ Terry was unbelievably good. Yeah. I thought Jaden Jackson might have had his best game at Oklahoma, and that's that's saying something even for a freshman because he's played so well. But it was a team defensive effort where a lot of guys played really, really well.
Josh, what'd you think of just that the linebacker group? I thought that they were really solid. Like, they did a good job of containing Milroe. It felt like, and the defensive ends deserve a lot of credit, and the defensive, I mean, it's everybody on the front seven, but like, it just felt like there was somebody always there from the start to meet Milroe in the hole, contain him. I mean, even from the jump, the first play of the game, Danny Stutsman sets the tone by filling that hole and blowing up that play. But what'd you just think of, I guess, the whole front seven and how they really just kind of controlled the line of scrimmage the whole game?
They really did. I thought the linebackers were outstanding. Obviously, everyone will talk about Kip's pick and completely understand. That was as you look at it, you're like, that wasn't the greatest. It wasn't like the Auburn play where you're like, wow, he did something really miraculous there. But you could tell, kind of like what you're talking about, George, he was so prepared for that play. Like, he just keeps – you can watch the play as he works outside and just keeps working farther and farther and farther towards the sideline. And I think Milroe just lost him behind one of Alabama's receivers, throws the ball, and, Kip's in perfect position. But a play that I don't think got enough credit was, I believe it was on Alabama's second drive. Kobe McKenzie works out, and he just barely gets a hand on the ball and tips a little. Would have been a first down pass for Alabama. I think it was throwing it to Ryan Williams. And it was stuff like that all night where Oklahoma just did enough. Like, they leveraged this enough. They got this, they forced this guy to bounce just a little bit farther than he wanted to go, and I think there was just a lot of stuff like that. The DJ Terry play where he works his butt off to get out there out in space on Jalen Milroe. Like, what are we talking about here? That's just unbelievable, some of the stuff you saw. But yeah, I thought the front seven, it was the best group on the field, and maybe Oklahoma's defensive line in general. R. Mason Thomas, as much as you want to talk about, like, the sack and the interception he caused and all that stuff, he could have had 2 or 3 more real easily.
Yeah.
Our Mason Thomas was a problem they could not deal with in the fourth quarter.
Josh, I was telling Eddie, I said if R. Mason comes back next year, and we'll see what his draft grades are this year, I said he's got like first-round potential if he goes out and just has a monster year next year. Like, that's how good he is off the edge right now.
Because in the NFL, you've got so many, and George, you know it better than me, you've got so many odd fronts and stuff like that where you can play a guy like him that's 6'1", 255, and you can line him up in a lot of different ways and do that sort of stuff. He's not nearly the anomaly he is in college football where you have so much 4 down, and it can be tough sometimes to play a guy like that until they are a junior or senior. They're big enough and strong enough to really stack up those big offensive tackles. But in the NFL, like, to me, I think now, if he left now, I'd say like 4th round, 5th round, something like that. Like, he would get attention. But if he comes back, has all that groundswell where he's going to be a Hendricks preseason award winner, he'll probably, be all SEC to start the year. Like, all that stuff starts going in your direction. Well, scouts are paying more attention at that point. They just are. Like, and that's going to happen. So I think there's absolutely a chance for millions of dollars of difference for him if he were to stay around one more year.
Just look at I just was looking up because you mentioned the size, Josh, because Nick Benito's having a monster year for the Broncos right now. Nick Benito is 6'3", 240. R. Mason is 6'2", 240. I mean, it's a very similar, and to your point, Josh, you could see R. Mason maybe playing a very similar position that Benito's playing right now.
No doubt. No
Guys,
doubt.
as a guy that grew up a Colts fan watching Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney, like, there is some stuff there that is similar. Like, just when he can pin his ears back, I don't know that there's a better first step I've seen in the SEC. Like, he is wildly explosive coming off the corner.
We mentioned Heath Ozaida. We mentioned Logan Howland, Xavier Robinson. To a certain extent, I guess Jackson Arnold, sophomore, but technically I guess he could be a first-year starter, freshman type, right? Yeah. On the defensive side of the ball, Jaden Jackson. I don't know if you saw Cole Kublik call him one of the best defensive tackles in the country, not just for freshmen. We're talking about overall. He had a fantastic day, as well as Eli Bowen. He continues to make plays, Josh, as a true freshman. How impressive was the pick? And that was kind of that first moment where you thought, they're going to do this. And not only are they going to do this, but this might be pretty thorough.
Yeah.
That's a literal quote. Tiffany was sitting in a different room, and she like games like that. Tiffany can't watch. She just gets anxious, and she just kind of wants me to update her from time to time. And she every once in a while she's like, "What's the score? What's going on?" And he picked that ball, and I was like, "They may do this. Like this may actually happen." So, guys, the thing about that play, and I talked about it already in the Monday Morning Idiot. Like, there's a very strong feeling of mine that he baited Jalen Milroe into that throw. Like, because he's looking around, he acts like he's not certain of what he's seeing, what the numbers are. But the second that ball is snapped, because he's almost turned around, like looking at Robert Spears Jennings when the ball is snapped. But the second it's snapped, I don't even know that he has time to fully get his head around, but he is downfield and he cuts around Kobe Prentice and then jumps in front of the ball. Guys, I think he thought the ball was already going to be there. Like he got there faster than he expected to. And then it was like, oh crap. Like, and then he kind of makes that unbelievable catch behind him. Like all his momentum's headed toward the end zone and he makes that play. I couldn't have been more impressed with Eli Bowen. And Jaden Jackson, there's a play on Alabama's scoring drive. And guys, that's the thing I love the most. And here's Eli's interception. So you can kind of, like you can see him, like look at just all his body is going the other way, and to turn around, make that catch, like guys, maybe Jacoby Johnson shouldn't have been the corner they moved over to receiver. That's an unbelievable catch, and one that Oklahoma could have used a few times on offense. But he is, I think it's moving from, Eli Bowen's a really talented freshman to, this guy might be kind of special. Like not just like another good freshman at Oklahoma, but like this guy is going to be maybe an All-American before long. Like you're starting to kind of have that thought.
He played, so there was 3 guys that played every defensive snap, and it was Billy Bowman, Danny Stutsman, and Eli Bowen. I mean, that's crazy for a true freshman. And if we want to get back to Jaden Jackson here, he played the most snaps of any defensive tackle for Oklahoma on Saturday.
Incredible.
Played 33 snaps of the 63.
Incredible. He's been good as advertised.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and this again, I saw Jaden last year about this time last year actually at IMG's senior night, and you were like, he's really good. He's going to be a guy that's ready to play. I never imagined he'd look this explosive and this twitchy, and like he just even again. I mean, because guys. Whatever things you want to say about Alabama, this isn't that, the old Alabama, this isn't quite there, and that's all fair. It's true. Tyler Booker and Parker Brailsford may be the 2 best players in the country at their position. Tyler Booker is a monster at left guard. Parker Brailsford won't win the Remington, in my opinion, because he's so young, but he's very much worthy of that honor if he were to get it. He is unbelievably good. And Oklahoma just kicked them inside. Like, I can't really believe it. But the play I did want to highlight, so on Alabama's scoring drive, there is a play where Dominic Williams makes a tackle on the run up side, and it looks like, Dominic Williams just kind of and he shows a lot of smarts. But what ends up happening is Jaden Jackson comes from Parker Brailford's right side. Parker doesn't see him. Jaden Jackson washes him down, like just literally runs him out of the play. And Dominic Williams is standing there with no one between himself and the running back, and is just like, okay, I'll go make this tackle. And he and Dasan McCullough just come up and take out Jamarian Miller. Like it's this is it right here. Carrie Murdoch is on it today. So watch here. You can see Jaden Jackson just destroy Parker Brailford, takes him right out of the play. And now right in the dead center of the screen, you've got Dominic Williams and Dasan McCullough just going to clean up. I believe that's Jamarian Miller. So it is, you're seeing stuff from him where you're like, that's different. But this freshman class, guys, and we're talking about the emergence of David Stone, Eli Bowen, Xavier Robinson, Jaden Jackson. You just start going down that list and you're like, guys, there's some stuff to build around in the next couple of years here for Oklahoma.
And it seems real because they did it against the opponent that they did, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
this is different than doing it against somebody else.
And to Josh,
we don't have to yell. It's Maine.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, definitely not Maine. But that's what, like, and maybe this can kind of wrap us up here. But it's just like, Josh, it felt like coming out of that game, there's a lot of hope with this group moving forward. Whereas we haven't really felt that most of the season. Even the Auburn game, it was like, well, like Auburn kind of gave them the game there at the end, right? This felt different because you had so many young guys, like you said, contributing, and obviously the seniors too, which was awesome to see them go out on a high note. But you look up and you're like, man, all these freshmen are playing, sophomores are playing. They're the ones kind of leading the charge here on a lot of this, and also just to go out and whoop Alabama. Like, this wasn't, like Brent said after the game, there was nothing fluky about this win. I feel like it makes you feel hope going. That doesn't mean that they're going to go beat LSU on the road this week. It's still a huge task for them to go do that, and I don't think that they can just sit there and LSU's going to make them try and throw the ball in this game. OU's going to have to be able to complete some passes down the field, I think, to win this one, and the defense is going to have to play a really solid game again. But it does make you feel a little bit of momentum, Josh, heading into what's going to be a huge offseason.
Oh, absolutely, guys. This is where, okay, you've got some building blocks. You've got some stuff here that you can start with. Now, there are problems. There are things you've got to fix. And, we you know, obviously we're tracking the coordinator search and what's going to happen at quarterback and those kind of things. But for the first time in a while, guys, and, you know, I don't know about you all, but I'm kind of like, okay, I can see a path here. Like, I can see how this could work. And maybe, you know, like I'll end up in a year from now being like, that was crazy where I was following the Missouri game. You know, like we'll see. Now, I will say, and I want to be, you know, as balanced as I can be about this. This win doesn't mean anything if you can't go back, you know, like if you go down to LSU and just get drugged. Like that like you've lost all that good vibe and the buzz you've built. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't want to, you know, be misunderstood, but at the same time, like, this is as important as how you can use it. Now, I think the chance to have the extra bowl practices and all that stuff, I think that's as important, maybe more so than the win itself.
Yep.
Because if we're talking about 2025, that's what's the entire focus of this program should be right now, is 25 and how you're going to get to where you need to be. But this made 2025 a much more hopeful, you know, outcome than we thought 2 weeks ago.
That's why I think that, you know, it certainly wasn't the biggest win in program history, but I think it was one of the most important wins, and especially for the circumstances that surrounded. I mean, we talked about it on the podcast after the game. You were at a Board of Regents meeting 2 weeks ago asking if Brent Venables is going to be the head coach in 2025, if he was even going to be back. Now you get out of this Alabama weekend, and it was really, really important. It was Saturday night just a moment, and you're going to look back and go, that was awesome? Or is it going to look back and say that was the start of something that was special, and they were something that was the start of a time when you started building towards whatever that's going to be here in the future? Last but not least, Josh, I don't know how much you could tell. We were watching the game back a little bit, but I think it came across on television. One of the best atmospheres, one of the best fan support. It was a fan base that needed that type of moment, that type of night, and certainly delivered on Saturday down at the stadium.
Guys, as someone who has talked to probably 20, 30 recruits that were there already, they have all mentioned the atmosphere, and I mean, a lot of those guys went down on the field. They were absolutely enjoying the moment and having a good time in that crowd. And that was, guys, I mean, it seems like the SEC has brought the best out of the fan base, because we can go back to that Tennessee game where, God, that fan base wasn't given a lot to get excited about in that game, and still through 4 quarters they were there, and they were loud, and they were doing all they could. So I think all year long the fans deserve a lot of credit. And for the people that had something to say about OU storming the field, man, piss off with that. Like, that felt like a big, like, exhale for the Oklahoma fan base. Like, we have been through this. We've been holding our breath for 12 weeks watching this thing just be a train wreck, and we get to have one moment of happiness, and we're going to enjoy the hell out of it. Like, credit, absolutely. Like, and I loved Brent's comments, like, take it out of my check. Absolutely. That's stuff that those seniors who have gone through a tough ass year, they'll remember that forever. All that environment after the game.
Josh, were you at the 2000 game when they stormed the field?
I was not.
Okay.
I was a freshman that year, but had not bought my tickets, and so I
Josh.
missed that one. So yeah,
Let's be honest.
That's not something I'll learn to regret forever, George, or anything. But
that seems like code for had too much fun at the tailgate.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't make it, or maybe on Friday night before the 11 a.m. kickoff. I think 4 times there's been a field rush is what we figured out.
Okay.
Obviously, 2000 Nebraska on Saturday against Alabama, 97 against Syracuse. And supposedly there's one in the 60s. I don't know. I didn't
know about
alive.
the 97 one. I had no idea.
I didn't either. I guess it was a mini storm, if you will.
Okay.
After they beat Donovan McNabb.
Do you guys know who they beat that day?
Donovan McNabb threw up on the sidelines.
That's right.
Did he really
Yep.
throw up on the sideline?
I believe multiple times, if I remember that story correctly. Like
So
he
he's
was
just a puker.
apparently in bad shape.
They blocked a field goal to win the game, I believe. That was during those low moments. But certainly, big win. Oklahoma heads into the regular season finale coming up on Saturday at 6:30 in Death Valley against LSU. And we'll see. The whole conversation that could be had if they win Saturday and all of a sudden you finish 7-5 and then you're going into a bowl game with a chance to get to 8
win 8
wins.
games. It's
Unbelievable
crazy.
from where this thing was when everybody was calling for people's jobs, ourselves included.
By the
right?
way, just real quickly, the bowl game stuff, it is like totally wild right now in terms of where they could end up. There's so many different places that and especially with the SEC, how many teams are bowl eligible?
Sure.
I think it's 14 of the 16 are going to be
and
bowl
Auburn
eligible.
could get bowl eligible
Exactly.
with the win this weekend in the Iron Bowl.
And the playoff is going to play a huge factor in it. If one of these 3-loss teams can get in, that would maybe move Oklahoma up a bit in the pecking order. If they don't get in, all of a sudden they fall back in the pecking order. The game on Saturday, like if they were to win against LSU, probably get a little better bowl. So there's a ton of stuff that could change where they end up for the bowl game.
All right, very good. Kerry says Davey O'Brien has honored Jackson Arnold for his efforts on Saturday, mostly on the ground, career high 131 yards. Tough kid, no doubt about it. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun on Saturday for a fan base that certainly needed it. We'll get into all of the recruiting stuff. Michael Vasusi visiting Texas, get an update on where he's kind of at in terms of his recruitment coming out of that trip to Austin, as well as recruit reaction, and then plenty of OK Prep stuff on the recruiting report coming up right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. You'll see that today. So for George and Josh, I'm Eddie. We'll see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.